A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, raising a family today is as challenging as it ever has been, and grandparents are a great blessing to every family that has them. And there's a movement called the National Grandparent Movement in Australia, and this August they're having their 7th annual National Grandparents Convention. And the president of the convention, of the movement, I should say, Reverend Ian Barnett, joins us from Wollongong today. Reverend Ian, welcome.
Hi, Andrew. Great to be with you guys, and really thrilled that there's a chance to speak about what we're doing.
Well, we're really keen to hear about it because, as I said, it's very difficult being a parent today. There's so many challenges, but having good, godly grandparents in the background as prayer and support and babysitters and, Uber drivers and all the other amazing things grandparents do, it's such a blessing to families. But tell us, Reverend Ian, what is it like being a grandparent in 2024?
Look, it is a joy and it's a challenge. I think as we've gotten older, we realise more and more how complex life is today, which is why it's so important that grandparents are in the space of their parents and their grandkids. You actually get to maybe even spend time with your grandkids that you probably didn't even do with your own children, which is an absolute blessing. You actually get to speak into the lives now of your children and grandchildren, maybe in ways you never thought were possible. And what I mean by that is wisdom, encouragement, being there. I think, Andrew, you said it was right. More and more, grandparents have been called upon to be all those things you mentioned, taking kids to school, picking them up to take to sport, dancing, you name it. We actually have such great chance for contact with them, and that allows us to actually engage with them and even ask them questions. And more we're noticing that grandkids will actually say things to grandparents they may not even say to their own parents, and so it actually gives you an in into their world and their life. But I want to say, look, honestly, it is a joy to be a grandparent. I don't want to underestimate. Look, as we get older, yes, there's some parts of our bodies that may not function as well as they used to, but we're living longer. The research indicates that we're staying healthier, and so I keep asking myself the question: what am I doing with what I have and the time that God has given me left?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and just thinking about it, what's the old saying? It takes a village to raise a child, and I think it's almost a full-time job now to be a parent because there's just so many demands on time. And if you have a full-time job and you're a parent, it makes it very tricky. And as you said, that's why grandparents often now are stepping up and doing a lot of the traditional roles that parents did.
Absolutely. And that saying about it takes a village to raise a child is so true. And I suppose we'd probably use the word today, it takes a community to raise a child, either a church community. You need others around you now to encourage you, to support you, to say, look, things might be tough now, but they might get better, and they will get better. And I suppose it's tied in with a word called hope. We have to keep hoping that we know that God is on the throne, that there's a good day coming, but we're going to have all sorts of ups and downs. And parents themselves right now are experiencing a whole range of challenges that they probably never saw coming like grandparents didn't.
Yeah, so true. So tell me about the National Grandparents Movement.
Yeah, so I started this back in 2017, and one of the reasons I started, I was a grandfather of 3 kids. I was in full-time ministry. And in 1 year, I went from 3 to 6 grandkids, and I just started to wonder what's around that can help me leave a legacy of faith to my grandkids. I saw lots of things about being a grain nomad when you retire, about superannuation and things like that. I saw nothing in the marketplace, but I use that phrase, about what's there to encourage grandparents. So I thought, well, what the heck? I might as well start something and claim the title of the National Grandparent Movement. It's a movement about encouraging and equipping grandparents to pass on a living faith legacy in Jesus to their grandkids. Through prayer, through letters, those things called letters, your listeners may not remember what those things are. How do we actually engage with our kids? How do we deal with the issues that are coming up? How do we support parents? Because the other reminder, Andrew, is that we are number 2 in the line of command. We're not number 1. We're not parents. We are grandparents, and so we have to honour that. But we can support parents in raising their kids too in ways that maybe we haven't thought about in days gone by. But it's all about encouraging parents, encouraging grandparents, equipping them to persevere so that their kids can also get to know about Jesus.
Yeah, awesome. And you say many of our listeners won't know what a letter is. They do, Ian. We have listeners who know it. I got a letter from one of our listeners today. She was a very nice handwritten note. It's always nice. There's something about a handwritten note, isn't there? It's so much better than an email or a text message.
Look, it really, I don't want to use the word novelty, but it's so rare now that we're posting cards or, writing notes or letters. But those are so valuable. And for grandkids today to receive something in the post from a granddad, a grandma or something is just wonderful. And you can write things about your own story or little things to encourage them. You can ask them, what can you pray for? And technology is wonderful. You can text, you can FaceTime, but there's something unique about putting pen to paper. And I encourage grandparents to continue to do that, especially if your grandkids live a long way away.
Yeah, and I think there's more emotion in handwritten notes too. I don't know why, but I think we feel more emotion when we read something that someone's written by hand, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I have grandparents tell me that they've read things from their grandkids and they just start crying. And the same happens when I've heard from parents that their kids have got a letter or something from Nana or Granddad or whatever, and they're so moved in writing it because you start to reveal more about yourself as you write. And the way you express yourself really touches the hearts of others, and I think that's wonderful. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunately it is a bit of a dying art, though. The younger generation don't have time to write anymore like we did when we were young and others before us.
Yeah, and look, we don't want to bag out social media right now. We don't have enough time to do it. But I tell you what, it certainly has taken people away from those things that might add greater value to the lives of people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just for our listeners, Ian actually was a minister in the Fig Tree Anglican Church in Wollongong, wasn't it, Ian?
That's correct, yes. I was the senior minister for some 14 years.
That is a very cool name for a church, the Fig Tree Anglican Church. I'm guessing there's a big fig tree out in the front yard somewhere?
If only. There is a fig tree in the fig tree area, but not at our church.
Oh, okay.
Maybe back in the day they have pulled it down. But there is a fig tree in the community which has history, but it's a suburb of Wollongong called Fig Tree, and it is a great name, Fig Tree Anglican Church. FAC, we called it, and I called the acronym Faithful, Adventurous and Compassionate, which I think is something that grandparents need to think about being. Faithful, being adventurous. Don't just do things for yourself. This issue of selfishness, just let's drop that a bit. And let's be compassionate. I think our grandkids and kids today need some compassion from older ones who are around them, because they're struggling with their identity issue. They're struggling to find out who really loves them, who really is in their corner. And I think grandparents can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I just read a report in the newspaper today about a mental health crisis amongst youth in Australia, and I think good old-fashioned love is one of the best cures for most ailments, isn't it, Ian? Especially for emotional and mental trauma. I think just being loved is really part of God's answer for that.
It is. Look, and, I did read once a quote from Mother Teresa, and it was a simple one. If you want to change the world, then love your family. And I think that is so true. If there's love in the family, and we know that life is complex, we know family life is complex, and there's a huge number of broken homes and broken families. But I tell you what, if kids can find love in the home, that will just help them navigate this complex life we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about this complex life, because it is more challenging today for children and also for their parents than possibly ever before in Australia's history. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, what parents and grandparents are seeing and experiencing is that everyone seems to have a phone. Everyone's getting answers for anything through social media, which probably are the wrong answers. But the mental health issue is dramatically on the rise. ADHD is there, gender issues. Where do people turn to find, can I use the word truth anymore? If they're not in a church community reading their Bibles, etc., they'll go to any site or listen to any voice that probably says what they'd like to hear. Whereas I keep thinking, grandparents, let you be the voice, because if you're not in the voice, social media and the world will shape them and will actually shape their values and their mind and what they're doing in the future. And so it's incredibly complex. And we're seeing that through the kids. Issues of, universities have their own way of doing things, which may or may not be helpful. Schools in New South Wales, we're noticing more and more parents are sending kids to faith-based schools, for example. It's on the rise. And one only has to stop and think, why is that? And I think it's because of the value systems they have and what they're teaching. And so grandparents are in that corner supporting them. And kids are they're just struggling. And it's funny, we've just watched the Olympics, and every time I hear a story, I'm hearing about how parents and grandparents helped the kids do what they did. And it's just reminded me of the value of being in there in the family home and encouraging your kids along the way.
Absolutely. And in steps National Grandparent Movement. And really, how do you guys operate? Like, you're having a conference in August, but as well as the annual conference, how else do you resource and equip grandparents to be all they can be in their families?
Yeah, we provide opportunities through seminars. Once a term, we provide articles, we provide various books. We've actually written a book last year called Footsteps for Future Generations that people can get through various bookshops as well. So we're resourcing people through DVDs, and yeah, that's still true, through books, through other articles, through conferences, through seminars. So there's a whole range of things. People can go to our website, which is called ngmlegacy.com, and they'll see the resources are there, and they can engage with us if they'd like to have a seminar or something as well.
Yeah, so that website was ngmlegacy.com. It stands for National Grandparents Movement. Now, what's the date and the location of your 7th annual conference? It's in August in the Castle Hill area of Sydney, but what's the date?
It's the 31st of August. It starts at 9 o'clock and finishes at 4:30. It's both in person and online. So no matter where you are, you can register through the website and you can watch it online. And in fact, you get 30 days after that date to watch it. So you can watch it in one day, you can watch it in 3 sessions, 1 session. So it gives people a chance to actually watch it over a period of time.
Or if you're in the Sydney area, you can get along in person, meet some other grandparents who are on a similar journey to you. And I'm sure the fellowship amongst the grandparents is one of the real blessings for those involved as well, is it?
Oh, absolutely. What we're noticing now is people are actually making their own contacts when they come to the conference with either people they've seen before or new grandparents they meet. And it's wonderful because there's so much mutual edification in that space that they're connecting with others they would not see. And we're sponsored by a whole range of groups who are actually using our conference as nearly a shop for all those groups to come and support other parents in doing what they're doing. So grandparents are loving being there in person.
Excellent. Well, Ian, I could talk to you all day. It sounds like you do an amazing job and that the movement is really helping a lot of families all across Australia. And we hope and pray that the National Grandparents Movement continues to grow. And for our listeners who are interested, check them out on ngmlegacy.com. That's ngmlegacy.com. Reverend Ian Bartlett from National Grandparents Movement, I want to thank you for joining us on 2020 today.
Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.